Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. This is Let's Play Higurashi When They Cry. Kai. Meakashi. Part 11. When we last left off, Shion called her sister Mion on the phone and asked to switch places with her. So, we're going to be at school. And even though technically everyone just thinks Mion's there, it's actually her sister Shion, who no one else knows exists, who was there pretending to be her sister Mion, because she's so very concerned about the person that she loves, Satoshi, who's going through very severe depression and psychosis issues, and has become very, very distant, having terrible nightmares and hallucinations, is going through a great deal of abuse in the home where him and his younger sister live, to where his caretakers are being very abusive to him and his younger sister. And he is wanting to work to make a gift for his younger sister, and he's also kind of just thinking about running away from town, but doesn't want to leave his sister because he loves her very, very much. But yeah, they're in a very terrible, terrible life situation. And Satoshi is kind of at the end of his rope with stress and anxiety and is about to snap. And, well, his younger sister isn't much better. So both him and his sister, whom he loves very, very much, if not more than anyone else on the entire planet, they are both very, very depressed and both very psychologically hurt from how abusive their caregivers are. So Shion, being the caring person she is, wants to be there by asking Mion permission to go there and pretend to be Mion, so that she can give emotional support to both Satoshi and to Satoko, and to cheer them both up, and to make them both feel happy, safe, and secure, and to let them know that they have, air quotes, Mion support, so that every day from that now on, whenever they think about, how much Mion cares about them, and how much other people can be trusted to actually be someone to rely on, they will always have this day to look back on, to know just how much they're cared about, and how much kindness and support and love they can rely upon from their friends. After all, they're both very depressed and at the end of their ropes, to the point that they are very depressed, very agitated, if not suicidal, and ready to snap. So, it would mean the whole world if Shion or Mion, were able to give some kind words to both Satoshi and Satoko, give them some head pats, and, give them words of encouragement so they know they're not alone, and that they can feel safe at school and around their friends, so they don't need to feel paranoid or scared or angry. And they know that everyone has their backs, so that he knows that Mion is his close friend, and that Mion has his and Satoko's best interests at heart, so that they know just how much Mion loves Satoshi, and Mion loves Satoko, and how much they should be able to open up to Mion and possibly Shion in the future, and how much they can rely on other people, and how, they can maybe get through this tough spot with their severe depression, and, maybe won't have to either run away or peanut butter jelly time beat the aunt to death, or the uncle to death with the baseball bat. I'm just saying, Satoshi and his younger sister, Satoko, just really, for the 100th time, have been having a really, really horrible time. And what they need right now, more than anything else, other than to get out of their abusive situation, is to know that they can feel safe and rely upon Mion and the rest of their friends. After all, Mion and Shion would only ever do the most supportive, kind thing for both Satoshi and Satoko. After all, no matter how much Mion and Shion and the others may love and care about Satoshi, and he of course cares about them too, the person that Satoshi loves and cares about the most in the whole world is Satoko, who is also completely innocent in all of the things going on. Satoshi and Satoko are both completely innocent, are very depressed and suicidal and very stressed out and agitated, and it'd be important for them to feel that they can feel safe and around their friends, and that they can trust and rely upon them, that their friends will always be there for them and care about them. So, today we have a very wholesome episode where Shion switched places with Mion, and she's going to do her best to cheer up Satoshi and Satoko, and to give them both kind words of encouragement and lots of hugs, and maybe try to find ways to help them not only to feel that they're not alone, and that they can rely upon Mion, but, maybe try to find some ways to work with, Chie-sensei or some other people to try to find a way for a future that they can look forward to, so they can have hope. So, let's have this heartwarming adventure of Shion being kind and gentle, talking delicately and softly to Satoshi and Satoko, and being the bestest of friends. Join us on this wonderful adventure where absolutely nothing bad will ever happen. President, if you would. For a moment I forgot that the class president was me. All rise. Looks like you didn't get enough sleep. I know, it's been very hot at nightly, I know. I've been not sleeping the best. I almost feel like I'm a different person, Chie-sensei. But try to get as much sleep as you can. Alright, everyone? Yes, ma'am. Does melatonin exist yet in this timeline? I mean, it's like the 1980s. Do, vitamin supplements exist? Do the Flintstones exist? I'm not sure this place can be called a school, because there are so many different age groups. It's like a kindergarten and an elementary school blended together. Since I'd heard already about what this place was like, I didn't feel that uncomfortable. It wasn't too difficult to act like Mion here. As Sis told me, Satoshi-kun looked exhausted. Don't worry, it'll get better. I will cheer you and Satoko up, and I will give you lots of positive encouragement. I said hi to him, but he ignored me. Since I knew what he'd been going through, his pain looked apparent to me. I was interested in another person in this classroom. Satoko, Satoshi-kun's little sister. She looked as worn out as Satoshi-kun, emotionless, like an abandoned doll. Yes, both of them have been through a lot of very horrible things. We should do our best to try to help Satoko. She looks like she's been suffering. I mean, she's been going through abuse after abuse, and it only gets worse in the future with Teppei. So, I think the best thing we could do would be to go up to Satoko and give her a big hug and some head pats and let her know that she's safe and that she's loved and that we will always be there for her. Everybody in this room was aware of their circumstances, but no one could do anything for them, so they just acted as though nothing was wrong. Mion will only let me have this one day. If I slacked off even a little bit, today would be over with quickly. I had to figure out what I should do in this limited time. I should probably talk to Satoshi-kun. About what? Anything goes. Cheer him up, sympathize with him, anything will do. More than anything, I just wanted to chat with him. However, Sis had told me she said Satoshi-kun didn't communicate much with her lately, and had distanced himself from her. I figured I shouldn't talk to him too casually. I wanted to, but maybe it was better to leave him alone. I needed to keep Sis's warnings in mind, but instead I decided to ignore them. I looked for Satoshi-kun. During lunch break, he was walking as if looking for a place where he could be alone. I caught him in the hallway. Satoshi-kun? He turned around, startled by my voice. His facial expression surprised me. He was scowling, clearly a sign of rejection. But I couldn't hesitate. I'd lose my only chance if I did. Hey, how are you? He gave me a look as if saying, Do I look fine to you? I never expected to see an expression like that on his face. I felt like my heart was being torn into pieces. As I looked down, he spoke to me. I felt a little glad, but the next thing he said changed that. I'm fine. Is there anything else? I'll get going if there isn't, because I want to be alone. Oh, okay. I guess you're tired from work? I'm sure you want some time to yourself. You're working today too, right? Where at? Sis had found several jobs for him. He worked at a few different places. He was helping out when necessary at any of the shops Mion introduced him to. As a result, he constantly had to do different tasks in a different environment almost every day. On top of that, he requested high-paying jobs from Mion because he wanted a large sum of money as soon as possible. In other words, he chose to do the mostly manual labor. He was exhausted every day because he wasn't that physically strong. Does it matter? And shouldn't you know because you helped me get the job? Mion didn't help him get the job, yet Satoshi-kun didn't look thankful for the opportunity. This wasn't like him at all. It made me feel sad. Ah, you're right. Sorry. Is that all? He sounded so harsh. Why was he being like that? Would he ever stroke my head again? Oh, I couldn't help my tears. They flowed onto my cheeks. Satoshi-kun looked confused for a moment, but then he frowned again. Sorry. The coach said he wanted you to come back to practice. I told him I quit, so I won't be going back. But maybe it's a good idea to work out from time to time? You know? Not interested. I didn't know why he was being so hostile towards me. Why did he hate me so much? I was left bewildered. Why? How come? Because I'm busy with work. Isn't it obvious? No, I didn't mean that. Why do you hate me so much? Why don't you ask yourself? Ask myself? What? What did I do? I don't understand, Satoshi-kun. I couldn't control my emotions any longer. Streaks of tears ran down my cheeks. Satoshi-kun gave me a hateful glare and walked away without saying another word. I couldn't even stop him. If I tried, he'd hurt me again with another cutting remark. I couldn't bear that, so I just watched him walk away. I wiped my tears and went back to the classroom. I heard somebody crying from inside. What's going on? I looked around the room to see. It was Satoko. I saw her bento box on the floor. I asked one of her classmates what happened, and it seemed Satoko had bumped into somebody's shoulder when she stood up and go wash the box out. That was all. But Satoko was crying as if afraid she was going to be chided badly. Well, that's kind of a PTSD thing. She's kind of used to the idea that if such a thing occurs, it's the end of the world. at this point, I would expect Satoko that if she was out in public and like dropped something on the ground, she'd start crying out of worry that somebody was going to start yelling and screaming at her and beating her over it, even though there's literally no logical reason for that to occur in that situation. At that point, it's just an issue of a person being used to a certain type of treatment. Heck, it'd be like somebody was used to constantly being mistreated all the time, or even being subject to physical violence, for them to like flinch if someone were to raise their hand around them. It may not be logical, but it's a learned response via trauma. But even ignoring all that, the normal response seeing Satoko crying in this situation should be, we should go to her and tell her that it's okay, and cheer her up. But especially since we know all this additional information, we should be doubly, if not triply, cautious and gentle with her. What happened was very minor, and yet she is very traumatized and has PTSD from a lot of stuff that's occurring, where she has learned that even though it was a very minor thing that occurred, she is used to the idea that when such a thing happens, she is treated as if it's something horrible, and as if she's going to be yelled at and beaten and punished, and as if she's going to be told that she's garbage and worthless and disgusting, and that she smells terrible, and that she's gross, and that she shouldn't even exist, and possibly even threatened with death, and lots of physical violence, and being yelled at. So, obviously the best thing we can do is to try to break that cycle, so that she knows that over something minor like this, she's not going to get yelled at or beaten or physically attacked, but instead, that it's not that big a deal. And we just give her a hug and give her the most important thing that she needs at all. Some feeling of safety and reassurance to know that she's loved and cared about. We should give her a hug and maybe some head pats. She could just pick up the bento box and things would be fine. It looked like the lid came a little loose, but it was definitely fixable. She didn't have to cry like that, yet Satoko started begging through her tears. Help! Help me, Nini! Well, her brother is the main person she's come to rely on. She loves her brother very, very much, and her brother loves her very, very much. But right now, he's a bit exhausted. So, what Satoshi would want in this situation would be for us to do everything we can to comfort his sister. After all, by helping out Satoko in this situation, it's actually not only beneficial for Satoko, but it's actually the best way we could help Satoshi and make him feel better. The best way we could help alleviate his burden would be to help Satoko in this situation. Heck, the worst thing you could possibly, for anyone, the worst thing possible in terms of for Satoshi's well-being would be if for Satoko were to be more further mistreated. But thank goodness no one like, her aunt and Uncle Teppei, who were abusive, are here. So thankfully, Satoshi doesn't have to worry about that. But she is still alone in this situation, and worried about those other, past memories of what is her daily life. So, one, she needs and deserves our comfort and support, and by helping Satoko, it's actually the best thing we could possibly do to alleviate Satoshi's burdens, and to actually help him with what's been troubling him and breaking his spirit. Because of what happened with Satoshi-kun, I couldn't suppress my emotions very well, so instead, they exploded into a torrent of crying, where I let down and gave Satoko a hug and told her that everything would be okay, and gave her every bit of the feeling of comforting that I felt I needed very much myself. I stormed up to Satoko while elbowing her classmate aside, and started giving her a vigorous head pat on the head, stroking her head, telling Satoko that everything is okay, that you're safe, and it's okay. I gave her a hug, told her that she's loved and safe and that she's loved, and I helped her with her bento box, and she smiled and everything was better. I grabbed her by the head and gave her a gentle head pat, and then threw her into the wall. Slam. Satoko screamed as 2 of her ribs probably fucking broke. She didn't seem to understand what had happened because gravity had betrayed her. She was shedding tears and shivering, probably bleeding. She must be wondering why I did that. I wonder why she would wonder that, it's not like that would be a sudden confusing thing. Or, immensely painful. Do you know why I did that? Eek, help! Nini! Satoko cried for her brother's help again, and so I grabbed her head and threw her again. Satoko stumbled and crashed into a desk. The desk fell and the contents of the drawer scattered about. Satoko didn't even stand up. She just crouched and trembled while looking up at me, not even bothering to apologize for all the stuff she spilled out of the drawer. Help! Help! Nini! Nini! If you weren't like that, Satoshi-kun wouldn't have to suffer, don't you get it? That's what I wanted to say, but I was too angry to utter another word. I don't know. I'm pretty sure in some versions we did. I picked up a bunch of textbooks from the floor while screaming the stuff I said I was too angry not to say, giving, Satoko a enormous psychological, condition for the rest of the time where she blames herself for her brother's disappearance, which may not have happened if we didn't do this. I picked up a bunch of textbooks from the floor that are very hard and heavy and pointy at the edges, and threw them at her face, trying to break her cheekbones and maybe gouge out her eyeballs. Cry as much as you want, but nothing's going to change. Okay, what's the lesson here? For her to be completely apathetic, numb shell of herself that's super suicidal and doesn't ask for help? Or for her to become aggressive and violent? I mean, honestly, the Satoko method is perhaps what would be the best course of action in most situations in life. Yes, if you're going through something in life, you need to take action to try to change it. But at the same time, you need to think through it and perhaps not make drastic or violent choices. After all, that's in large regard how I've criticized Satoshi and Keiichi and many other characters in earlier timelines of these stories for taking very drastic choices that, well, resulted in a great deal of suffering and death. Like many times when it came to Keiichi, when he was concerned about the severe abuse that was being levied by Teppei, her uncle. Yes, he had every right to be angry and pissed, and he had every right to want to kill Teppei. I certainly would want to kill Teppei in that situation too. And I was very clear that I don't feel like someone like Teppei even deserves to live. But at the same time, it didn't make things better for Keiichi to take the effort that he did. And I think in many situations where if he had talked to his parents, or if he had talked to Mion about the stuff, especially when he was thinking about, killing Teppei, I think by at least talking to his friends, things would have worked out better. Yes, if you want to improve at things in life or to fix something, you have to take action and actually do something about it. But you also need to think about it clearly. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And there's nothing wrong with understanding or expressing your feelings. Now, of course, when it comes to things like crying, yes, you should be careful about opening up with certain people. Most people, honestly, will not care about your feelings. And a lot of times, whether it's crying or talking about something personal, even crying itself is not something you want to do in front of other people. And in many situations, people will not respect it. But I would say it's important to understand that if you need to vent, you should. Even if it's just laying in your bed by yourself in the dark, listening to nightcore music with a fan on, in the dark, crying your eyes out for hours and hours. If it helps you to be able to function in the real world, then if it helps you regulate your emotions. Now, of course, different things for different people. If it helps you, cool. If it's not something you need in order to feel better, then that's fine too. As as long as it's not hurting you or hurting anyone else. But take Final Fantasy VII. When Sephiroth discovered the stuff that was going on, obviously he became very quiet, withdrawn, didn't talk about his feelings, and then he proceeded to burn down Cloud's entire village and mass slaughter people. But instead, what if Sephiroth had taken Cloud and Zack and they had gone to Dairy Queen, and they all sat there, ate some ice cream, Sephiroth cried a bit, and talked to Zack and Cloud about his feelings. Well, in that future, Cloud's whole family didn't get murdered. So, that's a positive. But I'm just saying, in that situation, maybe things would have worked out better if Sephiroth, instead of, genocide, arson, and murder, just went to Dairy Queen with his friends and ate some ice cream and talked about his feelings. Again, everything's a balance. Partly, being an adult in the modern world is a balance. A balance between both equally necessary forces of life. On the one hand, there's crying and talking about your feelings and relying upon people who care about you. And the other hand is rip and tear until the job is done. You need both in equal measure. It's about balance. It's kind of like emotions. There's no bad emotions. Happiness is good, but so is sadness. Calm is good, but so is anger. There are no bad emotions. Only a lack of control of how you react to those emotions. There's nothing wrong with having any of those emotions. It's how you choose to act upon them. And it's a balance. You shouldn't have too much of an extreme or the other, or a lack of them. You should have a balance of them. Simply put is this. Yes, Satoko's crying about, her severe abuse or terrible life situation, or her feelings of betrayal and abandonment aren't going to be made better or fixed by her crying. But it will make her feel better, it will help with endorphins, and above all, if done in front of people that are supposed to be her friends, it's a way of expressing to them just how badly you're hurting, so that they know how much that person needs other people to rely on and to be cared about. Now, yes, Satoko's crying isn't going to necessarily change her life circumstances, but in the same regard, there really isn't a whole lot she can do. In fact, really, the crying is the best thing she can do, is expressing how much pain she's going through in her life situation, in the hopes that other people can either emotionally support her or find a way to actually help her to change the life situation. The only other option she has other than crying is to either bury her feelings so far down and become a depressed, closed-off person who is in a constant state of just suicidal feelings and apathy, which is very not healthy and will not make things better either. In the other regard, she could lash out aggressively and violently toward others or toward the people that are hurting her, which is unlikely to have a positive result. Also, it makes sense that she's crying now because her friend is, in fact, one of her closest friends, is yelling at her, telling her that she's worthless, that she deserves the horrible treatment that she's been giving, that you're blaming her for being the victim, and you're blaming her for other people abusing her for her not being, violent enough? Or for being unfortunate enough to be mistreated in the first place. The only thing you're going to teach Satoko about this is that her friends hate her, are just as abusive, because before this she probably felt that at least her friends care about her, and at least maybe her friends won't be as abusive. That not maybe just her aunt and uncle are the exception, and that they're the only people that are going to be like that to her in her life. You're just teaching her that everyone else in the world is going to be just as bad to her as her aunt and uncle. This is just making things worse. Plus, you threw her into the wall and into a desk, and now you're slamming books into her face, trying to gash her head open. This is the opposite of making it better. It's just, yes, if you are in a real life situation where things are bad, crying won't fix that situation. But there's nothing wrong with crying or expressing how you're feeling, especially if your expression isn't hurting yourself or anyone else. At the end of the day, it's simply just the dam breaking open. It's those emotions coming out. And really, when it comes right down to it, you're either telling her to, completely suppress and ignore her emotions, which is even more damaging to her, or for her to only express it in an aggressive way, which is even worse. The best course of action we could have done when she was crying would have been to pat her head, reassure her, and give her a hug and tell her that she's loved, cared about, and safe, and tell her that everything's going to be okay. And then possibly, try to find a way to help her in her situation. To first emotionally soothe her, and then once she's calmed down a bit, talk to her. And then you can logic out how to take actual action to possibly fix what was causing the pain. But both things have to be done. Why are you crying? Because you think somebody's going to help you? You don't have any idea what he has to go through to protect you, do you? Do you understand that? Do you understand what you're doing? You shouldn't exist. We're telling the very depressed, sad person that was already suicidal to go kill themselves. Does that count as constructive criticism? That's constructive criticism, right? Die if you don't want to suffer. Go fuck yourself. Don't hurt Satoshi-kun. You deserve to die alone. You just deserve to die. Wah! Nini! Nini! Wah! Her desperate cries only increased my irritation. Stop crying. Don't call your brother for help. Stop it. If you weren't like that, if only you... I kept on throwing things at her. Satoko curled up to protect herself and cried even harder. At this point, a girl with long hair ran up and huddled over her. Thank you, Rika. I think it's the first time we've seen you in this game so far. I knew who that was. Rika Furude, one of Satoko's only friends. Please don't hurt her. She's in a poor situation, so please don't hurt her. It doesn't matter how pathetic she is. She shouldn't rely on Satoshi-kun all the time. Stop spoiling her. Satoshi-kun has to suffer so much because of her. No, stop. Don't hurt her. Rika also became the target of my anger. I'm trying to teach her something here. If you keep getting in the way, I'll crack your head open. We just threatened to murder her. I grabbed a chair and lifted it up over my head. Okay. That's a lethal... here's the thing. I understand Mion and Kiichi and Shion don't exactly have the biggest muscles in the world. But let's be clear. Even if, a 10-year-old were to swing a metal bat toward, the head of, Mike Tyson or Arnold Schwarzenegger, it still has the possibility of killing people. Human skulls can be fractured fairly easily. Especially at certain angles, downward momentum. Heck, what if the part of the chair, like, grazes her neck and gashes her throat open, or hits her in the eyeball? Like, not only we're, like, it's, at the very minimum, it's going to cause horrible bruising, terrible pain, a permanent scar. But, I mean, let's be clear. In this situation, if Shion swings down the chair and hits Rika, there's a possibility that even on swing 1, it will kill her, let alone if we just keep hitting her over and over. I mean, this is... like, we're jumping straight from assault and battery to... because technically, we're already doing that. Now, this is... like, swinging the chair in this situation. Like, if we swing the chair down and hit either of them, that's... even if it's not intentional to... we literally said, we're going to kill you. And die. Just saying. That's attempted murder. Or actual, manslaughter if, we actually follow through with swinging the chair. Nothing says, "Dear Satoshi-kun, please pat my head and say you love me," like murdering your friends with a chair. Well, we came for the higurashi and we stayed for the WWE. It wouldn't hurt only a little if I threw this thing at them. It actually had the it would hurt a lot, at the very minimum. Probably leaving a very long-lasting permanent scar. But it's very likely that you're going to kill them. Shion, you actually swing the chair at them like that, especially if you do it more than once. You just murdered 2 people. They were supposed to be your friends. How do you think Mion's gonna feel? Now we have to explain that Shion is a person after you're arrested. And it's like, okay, your sister's arrested, and 2 of your friends are dead. I mean, Satoshi probably kills himself afterward, or beats Shion to death. Now, granted, he'll probably show up in the nick of time, tell her to stop, and that'll defuse the situation. But more than likely, if he walked in and saw that, Satoko and Rika were beaten to death, whether it was Shion, Mion, or whatever knowledge of his, or whoever, he'd probably kill them on the spot. Question. How would Mion react to finding out that Satoko and Rika had been beaten to death by Shion? I'd imagine Mion would be very angry about this. And here's the thing. Well, yes, I feel the nail-ripping off thing about Shion leaving the fucking school was way fucking overboard and shouldn't have happened. It does make it harder to feel any kind of sympathy or empathy for her after, the attempted murder of Rika and Satoko. So, I mean, like, here's the thing. Obviously, what Oryu did in the future, like, days after this, way overkill, unacceptable, and probably led largely to the events of Watanagashi and caused, a lot of death in the future. But Shion wasn't exactly an emotionally stable person. Hell, I would say this. Given the way Shion is behaving in this instance, you know who I would fear for the most? Satoshi. Especially, imagine if Satoshi were to ever be in a relationship or even marry Shion. Because given the way Shion is behaving right now in this instance, how would she treat Satoshi if suddenly she got bored of him or if she lost her temper? And what if they had kids? How would Shion treat those children if they were crying or she felt upset that they were being too reliant and crying and asking for too much? The simple question is this. If the way Shion is behaving here right now, what kind of wife or girlfriend would she be for Satoshi? What kind of mother would she be to the children? How would that relationship go long term? Especially with the severe stresses that occur in life, let alone in Misawa. But yeah, how would Mion feel? Here's another well, we'll get to Ren in a second. But here's the thing. I fully expect Rena to have fucking Hawkeyes here in a second. Like, I feel like we're missing something. Like, was Rena just sick today? Was Rena not here today? Why was Rena not... Like, Rena must not be here, you know why? Because I imagine if Satoko was in a situation where she dropped her fucking bento box and was crying, I assume Rena would have been there giving her head pats and hugs and reassuring her everything's okay before I even got to open the fucking door. But here's the question. Like, the main thing is this. Yes, the grandmother Sonazaki. The thing about forcing Shion to rip off her fingernails because she didn't, like, stay in the school she was told to go to. Yes, that's severely extreme, and honestly, her grandmother deserves to die for that. And I really have no compassion or sympathy for her grandmother or for Kimiyoshi, the mayor, in that situation. Or even her mother, Akane. It's obviously really fucked up. And it's unfair to Mion, because Mion was forced to be in an antagonistic role in that situation, too. But, here's the thing. While I do have a great deal of sympathy and empathy for Shion in regards to that, and I feel that she was very much wronged, and that she doesn't deserve to have that horrible situation occur in the Sonazaki household. However, every feeling of sympathy and empathy I have for her just evaporates into thin air. Any amount of compassion I have for Shion just sort of disintegrates in the face of, unless Satoshi-kun or somebody steps in through the door. Right now, we are about to not just attempt murder, but we're actively going to commit murder against two innocent people who have done nothing wrong, and technically, both of these people have suffered very, very much, just from what we publicly know is Shion. That being said, there's much worse things going on behind the scenes. Granted, yes, there are alternative versions of the story in which Satoko is a fucking space witch god deity fighting another space witch god deity, and she's time looping and causing all the fucking bullshit go wrong. But even in that version of the story, she's not aware of it yet at that point. And it's not even an option for her. So one, that's an alternative timeline that, for the most part, I don't even consider canon. It's like complaining about the issues of Lord Slug or Cooler in Dragon Ball Z, or even Turles, or Dr. Wheelo, or Garlic Jr., or Broly, or Android 13, or 21, or Hirudegarn, or Janemba. They're not canon. And even then, even in the alternate canon, like in the non-canon stuff where, this person's a futuristic, space witch or something, here's the thing. That didn't even occur yet in this timeline. It didn't even happen for at least another 11 months in the future. Which means, in the same regards, the nail thing that happens later on with Shion probably largely influenced her to go down the darker path later in this story, which is much darker than what she's doing right now, where she's trying to murder both of these people and will act. It's not just attempted murder. Like, right now, we've already committed attempted murder. We're like picking up the chair and we're going to swing it. The only thing where it's not going to be is Satoshi's going to come in the way in time to tell us to stop. But had no one stopped us, we're literally committing murder. It's double homicide. First degree murder at that. Like, under most circumstances, like, you get the death penalty for this. But I mean, yes, both of these people have lost their parents and have dealt with abusive circumstances. Now, that being said, this person's time looping, trying to save everyone from the apocalypse, and they're largely powerless. But they haven't done anything wrong. And this person, one, the version of the story in which she's a space witch doing evil things in order to torture this person to make her stay in Hinamizawa. One, that's not canon. That's an alternate story that was written for shits and giggles, which I can't criticize the makers of 07 for making, because I enjoyed that story, and I still want the creators of this game to make more anime and games and music. But more than that is this. Even in that alternate story that isn't even canon, even in that version of events, that stuff hasn't even happened yet. Which means she hasn't done anything wrong. And if anything, the same way the nail issue of Shion influences her to do the bad things later, but doesn't excuse it, yes, this treatment that she's receiving here doesn't excuse what she would do later in that alternate story that's not canon, but the treatment that Shion is giving Satoko here, in that alternate story that isn't even canon, where she chooses to become a space witch and torture people, one could say that largely is influenced by this circumstance. So that if Shion hadn't even done this, let alone if she had actually gotten positive encouragement, then Satoko would have never became a psychotic space witch. It's kind of the same way a person could say, well, there was this person that was like beating the shit out of Hitler when he was in 2nd grade, and then you look at the future and say, well, Hitler killed 6 million Jews and did World War II, so obviously he deserved to be beaten when he was in 2nd grade. And you're like, but here's the thing, he didn't do those things yet. So at that point, you know, he was still completely innocent. It's like the question of, do you kill baby Hitler? And the answer is no. Because at that point, the person's done nothing wrong. Heck, the whole ideology of killing someone when they're young because they're destined to be something bad is literally the evil of Hitler to begin with. Judging people by their race or religion or just any of that they're destined to become bad. Heck, it'd be just as feasible that you could be like, okay, this person grows up to become a dictator, so why not just talk to them and give them positive encouragement so that they don't go down that path to begin with at all. That a large point, a lot of people, yes, it's largely choice, but choices are influenced by things. One could say, is it fate, or is it just a lot of circumstances in the background that kept sort of blocking any sort of on-ramps or off-ramps of the road of fate? On top of that, yes, it wouldn't excuse what Hitler did in the future if, like, people, like, beat the shit out of him and molested him in, like, fucking 2nd grade or some shit. But it also doesn't mean he deserved any of that kind of shit. And it doesn't mean just because he would, in the future, become a dictator of the Third Reich, or the Second Reich, I don't know, second, doesn't mean that he deserved it. If anything, while it doesn't excuse Hitler, it would say that the person who was abusive and violent to Hitler when he was a young child is largely responsible for molding him in the direction of becoming who he became, which would then mean that the person who was abusive to Hitler when Hitler was a child is actually responsible for the deaths of all those Jews and of the people who died in World War II. It would mean that the blood of all those soldiers and civilians who died in the war, and all those 6 million Jews who died, and also not just Jews, there were 6 million Jews plus many other people, whether it's political dissidents, foreigners, gay people, or even just people that were too religious when it came to Christianity, or even people that were against the war, or people that had a health condition. There were lots and lots of people that weren't Jews who were put through just as much horrible treatment. But to simplify it, is this: all those people who died in the Holocaust or Holocaust adjacent tragedies, all of the blood of all those people, all the blood of the people from the Holocaust, all the blood of the people that were persecuted, all the blood of the people who died in the war would be on the hands of the people that mistreated Hitler when he was younger. Now again, Hitler's still to blame, as is the ideology. But at the same time, choosing to kill Hitler as a baby is the most Hitler thing you could possibly do. There was a documentary called Come and See. I'll put multiple links down below. Some of them will be to a thing from alternate reality Dragon Ball Z. It's like Team 4 Stars DBZ abridged, but a little more chaotic. I'll put namely the scenes of parenting with Vegeta. I wonder, what if Vegeta were suddenly here, and it was Vegeta's choice of what to do in this circumstance? Like, what would Vegeta do? And not just DBZ Vegeta who could shoot, like, lasers and shit. What if there was a real-life person in the world of Hinamizawa who had the exact same personality as Vegeta? And the question is, what about which Vegeta? Any of them. Now, I'll say this. I would say preferably the Vegeta from the end of Dragon Ball Z, after they kill Kid Buu. That Vegeta. Now, feel free to tell me what you think Vegetas of other parts of the timelines, like say the start of the Saiyan Saga, would do in this situation. But I would say if you do that, there's two things I would want you to do. First off, I'd want you to still tell me what the end of Z Vegeta would do. Or rather, that's after Oob. But that one too, maybe. But I mean, particularly after Kid Buu died. But if we use Saiyan Saga or Namek Saga Vegeta, go on the assumption that... Tell me what that Vegeta would do under the assumption that that Vegeta actually cares about Satoko. Preferably in a way that YouTube won't censor for saying very bad words, because YouTube sometimes will auto-delete comments if they mention certain words. So you can't just say that he would just kill everybody. Or maybe you can, I don't know. I really don't know how that stuff works. I don't know how the comment section works. Just saying, what do all of you think Vegeta would do? Even if he didn't have powers. It was just a person with the same personality as Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. And assuming that he cares about Satoko. What would Vegeta do? Or, let's say a situation where Satoko went into adoption. And somehow, Vegeta adopted her. How would Vegeta raise and care for Satoko? And what would Vegeta do once he found out about this past of hers? How would Vegeta help her? Maybe I'll do another link to an AMV that is only of a really great anime and a great song, but I think might apply. But in general, I think even Vegeta, even in the most callous version of him, would give Satoko a hug. And even though he'd probably have her train and hit a punching bag a lot, he would be very gentle with her and give her lots of stuffed animals and toys. But, as I was saying, I would feel that even in that alternate story, which isn't canon by the way, it's non-canon, where she eventually becomes a space witch 11 months in the future, because some sort of space god ghost from an alternate dimension talks to her and fuses with her to give her powers to time loop to torture Rika out of her own fears of insecurity. I think Satoko would have never gone down that path at all had it not been for not just the abuse, as she went through a lot of things, and even with Teppei's reemergence, but with what Shion's doing right here. I think largely, if it hadn't been for this as a sort of catalyst event, even in the non-canon version where she becomes like a space witch, I don't think Satoko would have gone down that route. And then again, it reminds me of HBI 2K did an abridged series of Berserk, where he made an alternate version of things, where the end of Berserk, when Griffith is given the choice to join the God Hand, and of course we all know what actually happens in the show, it's very not safe for work, but in HBI 2K's version, Griffith tells the God Hand to go fuck themselves. He decides he'd rather live his life as a cripple than betray his friends, that he cares about them, and that he won't betray or hurt them. That one, he'd be too disgusted with himself for betraying them, but also that he loves and cherishes them, and that they're not worth anything the God Hand could give him. And I'll say this, it's terrible, it's awful. The nail thing that happens later on, the Sonazaki's leadership is not justified in the slightest for doing that. Whether it be via religious rules, the culture of their society, or even Yakuza, it's not okay. It's completely unjustifiable. For Shion or Kasai or Yashimiro, whatever his name is, to be punished for the whole her leaving school thing, let alone so harshly. But I can't feel any sympathy for you, Shion. You are literally about to commit murder against Satoko and Rika. How do you think your sister would feel about that? Heck, I imagine your sister, if she were to come to visit you in jail, might literally, even if you were already slated for the death penalty, might kill you herself. And even though later on Mion is forced into an antagonistic role to force you or assist you to cut off your own, to rip out your own fingernails, which, keep in mind, she's being forced into it too, to kind of push you guys away from each other because the Sonazakis fear your union of the two sisters working together. But also because Mion agrees to it because she knows that if she can help you through this nail thing, which is horrible, that it can help Shion avoid further pain and suffering. Mion herself might have been threatened with punishment, and Mion also knows that if Shion doesn't go through with it, Kasai and Yasuke will be punished very severely, and that Shion will suffer even worse, so will others. It's an unfair circumstance. But at the same time, Mion could possibly have a slight extra motivation to be okay with the idea of helping you to rip out your own fingernails, given how abusive and violent, if not, the attempted murder, only attempt because somebody stopped you, but where you literally did commit assault and battery on her closest friends, who she loves and cherishes, who are already going through bad situations. And you literally were going to murder them had, the person that, you're very concerned about not stopped you. And again, all this was allowed out of concern for Satoshi. Mion only let you switch places with her because she herself was so scared and worried about Satoshi and was willing to do anything to try to help her close friend who seemed beyond her help and reach, praying that you would somehow bring about a miracle. And you betrayed Mion's trust that she was relying on you to help her friends, and instead you made everything worse. Furthermore, you made her friends hate her and think that she committed this horrible atrocity. And finally, again, I'm pretty sure Rena must not be here, Because if Rena was here, one, she would have already been comforting Satoko herself before we had even put our hand on the door to open it, to come in here. Before we had, we would have heard the crying, and before we even got to open the door, Rena would have already been kneeled next to her, hugging her and telling her everything's okay. As we should have been doing. But secondly is this. If Rena were here, which she must be sick today, I'm thinking that our conversation with Rena yesterday, or the fact that we were out in the rain, so either her extra stress of being reminded of Oyoshiro-sama and thinking on it so badly, heck, she might not have slept last night out of all the concerns she's having, or the fact that we were out in the fucking rain for such a long period of time, she probably got sick or exhausted or was basically mentally too unhealthy to come to school today. But I'll tell you this, if Rena was here, even if for whatever reason, if she had not already been comforting Satoko by the crying bento thing, let's be clear, we would have never gotten to the situation of Rika shielding Satoko. Like, before that ever happened, like, honestly, we wouldn't have had time to, slam Satoko into a fucking wall repeatedly, and then, slam her into a desk, and then throw things on top of her, and be, kicking her and hitting her and throwing books into her face. The moment we threw her into the wall the first time, Rena would have fucking, sprinted at us from the side and taken, I would say a knife if we had one available, but more likely a pair of scissors, a pencil, and she would have jabbed it right into your ribs. And that's if you're lucky. She would have taken the fucking pencil out and jabbed it into you over and over and over again until you were nothing but spaghetti. You would have became spaghetti sauce. Yes, her name is Rena Ryugu, but you would have been Shion Ragu, the pasta sauce. Does someone else use ragu in their spaghetti? Yeah, Shion would have became ragu. After that, Rena would have gone in front of the judge, and the judge would be like, Rena Ryugu, known as Reina, however you pronounce it, you are on trial for manslaughter. You killed your fellow classmate. And although it was in defense of another classmate, we find you went too excessive. You stabbed her 43 times in the back. What do you have to say in your defense, Rena Ryugu? Rena would then respond, in my defense, Your Honor, I would have stabbed her 68 times, but the knife broke off in her spine on the 43rd strike. Rika tightly closed her eyes, covered Satoko with her body. I didn't care what the consequences would be. I decided I was going to murder both of them by bludgeoning them to death with the hard metal chair. With a lot of weight. I didn't care if You're doing more than hurting them. I didn't care if I hurt them. You hit them with the chair. That's not just hurting them. That's literally, if they survive, it's attempted murder. If they don't survive, it's straight up murder. First-degree homicide. Stop! Hey, you are here, but I heard a door move. You must have been outside. Stop! Everyone's like, why is Rena not tackling her? Simple. Because sound moves faster. Light moves faster than sound, but sound still moves faster than Rena. If Rena tried to tackle her, she probably wouldn't have made it in time. In fact, she probably had to run here and is out of breath. So, she's trying to get, Shion to stop. Now, if Shion didn't stop, well, physical violence. But at that point, I at least feel that the court would be lenient on Rena in this situation if she killed Shion, if Shion were to continue with that strike. I'm just saying this. If Rika and Satoko live from the strikes, attempted murder. If they don't, first-degree homicide. Stop! Me-chan! Rena returned to the classroom and shouted at me. Then Satoshi-kun rushed in while pushing Rena aside to save Shion from certain fucking death. Because, let's be clear, Rena possibly would have at least punched her. But if Shion had continued with trying to strike with the chair, Rena would have fucking killed her. Satoshi quite agitated himself, but probably prioritizing Satoko's safety over his own anger. A very mature stance. Seeming to have grasped the situation immediately. It seems pretty obvious what's happening. You know, Shion's kind of standing there with a chair in her arms, in the air, about to murder Satoko and Rika, as Satoko's on the ground covered in bruises, and Rika's cowering over her. They're both crying. He charged straight at me. Until my body had hit the locker, I didn't understand what had happened. He shoulder-checked you. There was a loud crashing noise. I'd left a dent in it. I crouched there in pain. Oh! What's that, Shion? Flying through the air into a metal locker or a wooden locker is painful? Huh. You probably feel like you want to cry. Is that how you feel, Shion? Oh, you also feel upset that your friend attacked you. I wonder if Satoko knows how that feels in any way, shape, or form. Satoko, are you alright? Nee, wah. Satoko pushed Rika aside, jumped at her brother, and started crying again. What happened? Why were you treated like that? Why? I didn't do anything, but Mion-san, she suddenly... Wah... What's going on? Mion! Satoshi-kun shouted at me while clutching his sister. He looked fierce. I wonder if he's this upset about coming in and seeing that, this... I wonder how he would feel if you were to, I don't know, crucify Satoko and then stab her repeatedly with a knife on that crucifix while taunting Mion, who's locked in a cage, forced to watch all of this. Grantedly, to be fair, all of this happened 2 hours after Rika is dead. And I don't know where Rena is in that part of the timeline. And Keiichi is, well, having a mental breakdown trying to save Rika, and, well, obviously not succeeding. But, yeah, largely, Keiichi and Satoshi would have the same reaction about things. They are very similar personalities. There's also a possibility they both exist at the time together. They would probably be gay for each other. I'm pretty sure there's a timeline of that too. Then there's a timeline where everyone dates everyone, so there's a point where Keiichi dates Shion, Mion, Satoko, Rika, Chie-sensei. Trying to think if there's any other characters. Mio Takano? Well, no, she's a lesbian. Even though she's dating Juro, the photographer dude, she's actually a lesbian. Also, technically, Mio Takano is more so dating Jiro as part of her cover because he's also working with the underground military complex that's researching the town. And Jiro actually does have feelings for her, and she's leading him on with that, but that's because it's convenient and useful for her. But also, she's a lesbian. So, at best, she's bisexual, but with a strong preference. Though, last I checked, I think Mio Takano's type is Rena. Main point, Keiichi and Satoshi are like the same sprite. Just Keiichi's a different hair color and eye color. That's it. Also different clothes. It's kind of like Tien is just Goku, but bald, a third eye, and bigger shoulders. The end. What did Satoko do to deserve this? What did we do? Why do we always have to suffer like this? Why? Why? He released Satoko and rushed up to me, grabbing me by the neck. You said that I should ask myself, didn't you? So why don't you ask yourself? Ask what? I know you feel she's a burden on you. You always have to suffer because of her. You know that, right? If she were stronger, you wouldn't have to suffer. She's the one to blame. I don't believe what I said was wrong. It was. It was very wrong. Like I said, I mean, the nail ripping thing was very fucked up, and I'll say this. In reaction to you leaving that school that you were supposed to be going to, yes, completely unjustifiable, completely fucked up. But I can't feel any sympathy for you after just the events of this one day. But after hearing that Satoshi-kun went berserk, I don't blame him. But what? What the heck do you know? Ow, Satoshi-kun grabbed my hair and threw me to the wall, just like I did to Satoko. However, I wasn't going to back down. I no longer had any control over my emotions at all. That doesn't sound like an emotionally stable person, or somebody that, you would feel safe around. You spent so much time protecting her. She'll never stop relying on you until you stop doing that. Here's the thing. One, Satoshi and Satoko are in a very terrible circumstance, and neither of them are to blame for it. But more than that is this. There's nothing wrong with relying on someone who cares about you. Even if Satoko always relies upon and needs her brother, there is nothing wrong with that. What the hell do you know about us? What the heck do you know? You persecuted our parents, and now it's us? That's the way of the Sonazaki family, huh? You torture traitors for fun. Is it fun? Is it fun bullying us, huh? Stop it! That was Rena's voice. She stepped in looking as fierce as a demon. Satoshi-kun, please. Mi-chan doesn't have any bad intentions. She wanted to help you, but she's just lost control a little, okay? And here's the thing. In this situation, the normal response, I feel, is just calm down like Satoshi's doing. I feel like me and Satoshi would have very similar personality. But I also feel like later on, a lot of people in the future will criticize Satoshi for not being more aggressive or violent in this situation, which really would not have made things any better. It would have only made things worse. Simply put is this. He's being mature about it, and he's listening to reason, and he's choosing to be non-violent. But, of course, there's always going to be people that are going to criticize you for that. Both in terms of the video game and in real life. I'm sure not only myself, but many of you can relate. Satoshi-kun looked like he wanted to say something back, but he chose not to. You too, Mi-chan. I know how much you worry about Satoshi-kun. But you can't solve the problem like that. It's like, I know how much you love and care about your love interest, but you can't solve that by murdering his family. Especially the one member of it that he actually cares about. I think you understand, right? Since Satoshi-kun didn't say anything, I kept quiet too. Here, Satoko-chan, you don't have to cry just because you dropped your bento box. Oh look, it's what we should have done from the start if we had any amount of, humanity. Alright, do you feel better now? Satoko, I'll pick up the bento for you. Ooh, here, kick. Rika started picking up the bento box, while its owner continued to cry. What's this? Severe emotional distress? and crying makes it hard to have mechanical control over your body? I understand that. Guys, can you help us clean up? The teacher will be back from the vegetable garden soon. This quarrel is over, so don't tell her about it. Okay? The classmates looked at each other and nodded, then started picking up the stuff on the floor. Question. 1. Shion should have some bruises, but Satoko should have a lot of bruises and bleeding just from this. Or are we just not noticing it because, she's already covered in bruises from the abuse? Granted, it's not as physically abusive as what happens a year in the future when Teppei comes back in that one timeline. But I'm just saying, I feel like there's concerns about how this is being handled. Rena's trying to do its best, but I feel like, even before this happened, I feel like everyone else should have here. Satoshi-kun, Mi-chan, why don't you guys shake hands as a sign of reconciliation? Sorry, I didn't mean to do this. Tears started to roll down my cheeks again. I'm sorry, too. You have nothing to do with our family situation. I'm sorry. Okay, Mi-chan, why don't you apologize to Satoko-chan now? I was fine with apologizing to Satoshi-kun, but I didn't want to apologize to her. Why not, Mion? That's your friend! I'm certain that the real Mion would have never slammed her into a fucking wall. But the situation wouldn't be settled otherwise, so I reluctantly apologized. Satoko nodded and looking discouraged. Honestly, I really wouldn't blame her for holding a little bit of a grudge on that. After that, Rena let me go. My head ached, so I held it with both hands. What was that? What did I do? I didn't want to use this precious time to fight. Sis had warned me. She told me that I shouldn't talk to Satoshi-kun just like that. What did I come here for? I shouldn't have come here if I knew this was going to happen. Stupid, you're stupid, Shion. I was overcome by emotions because I was so worried about Satoshi-kun. I mean, yes, you're overcome by emotions. That still doesn't justify the actions that you just took. Nor does it excuse it. When did things go wrong? Were they wrong from the beginning? Probably when you slammed her into the wall. That would be my guess of when things went wrong. I got into a fight with Satoshi-kun. This was totally the opposite of what I wanted. I regretted it. I hated myself for it. Honestly, given what you did, this is the best possible outcome. I couldn't blame myself enough. My world had been torn apart. I wonder how awkward this will make it for me on tomorrow. She also probably was hoping that you would help things with, Satoshi, and you made it worse. I wish the sky would fall and kill me. Funny you mention that. Sis sounded both amazed and confused. I'm busy with the festival preparations, but you certainly made things more complicated. Sorry. Sis tried to say something, but she stopped in the middle. After listening to a few complaints, I started telling her about everything that happened today. Sis had to pretend that the trouble I caused today was her responsibility, which must have been very taxing for her, so I won't get the chance to trade spots for a while. Hey, I think you should be more aware of the hassle I have to go through. Yeah, you're right. Sis had been sympathetic, but maybe I pushed her too far this time? Honestly, given the circumstance, even though things worked out, this circumstance might be justification for her to just completely not have your back at all anymore. Or even care about you. Also maybe beat the fucking crap out of you. Of course she'd been hesitant be hesitant to trade spots considering what I did today. The atmosphere felt awkward, so we were both silent for a while. I mean, yeah, not only is it very awkward to switch places and take her spot in school, but also, she's like, what, are you going to go beat Satoko again? You want to finish the job you started? What are you going to do, crucify her this time and stab her a bunch while you yell at me to say that I have to say I'm sorry enough and you'll let her live? What am I saying? Shion would never do that. If you were to get another chance, what would you do, Shion? What would you do, Shion? What would you do? That was a reasonable question. I wasn't prepared to answer, though. If I had a chance to go to school once again and see Satoshi-kun, what would I do? Would I apologize to him about today? I don't think that would work. That might even upset him again, no matter how hard I tried. Okay, here's something that he was saying. It was Sonazaki family who had been harassing this. He would only be natural for him to hold a grudge against us. But why was he only expressing that now? I'd been a Sonazaki to him all along. Satoshi-kun struck my head even though he knew that I was Shion Sonazaki. Sis, do you think that the Satoshi-kun is holding a grudge against the Sonazaki's family? I think so, yes. It was our family that initiated the persecution of the Hojo family, making them the scapegoats. Even after the dam conflict, it wasn't easy for the Hojo family to live in Hinamizawa. Given all of that, it's not surprising that Satoshi-kun hates us. The Sonazaki family, who put his family in a devastating situation. But, why now? Why is he only expressing that grudge to us now? Why is this happening now? If he wanted to... If he had rejected me in the first place, I wouldn't have wanted to get close to him. My tears wet my cheek. I didn't bother to wipe them. It's only natural for him to hold a grudge against the Sonazakis. There's nothing unusual about it. Rather, why has he been treating me like a friend? I knew how stupid this question was. Because you were a friend. Well, technically, Mion was his friend. Simply put, he was not holding... He has a grudge against the Sonazakis, but he wasn't blaming you for it. He wasn't blaming Mion. And here lately, he's still not blaming you. He's just agitated and withdrawing. It's just that you pushed him a little bit. I think it's because he was mature. I can't understand it. He'd been treating me as a friend because he was mature. But now that he becomes stressed mentally and physically, he decided to reject me. No matter how hard I thought about it, I couldn't find anything to fault him with. If there were somebody to blame, it'd be somebody I'd never accused before. Why did the hag decide to persecute the Hojo family? It was his parents who supported the dam project, right? Satoshi-kun had nothing to do with it. Why was he included? Why? Mion couldn't say anything in return. Actually, it wasn't at all hard to guess the reason. The hag didn't give any specific order to harass the Hojo family. She just thought the Hojo family was getting in the way. The people around her noticed that was bothering her and took steps to get rid of it. Though, of course, she must have known how influential her own words were. She could have at any point said, "Hey, those Hojo parents, they're kind of dicks, and they're an enemy of this village. But, they're kids, completely innocent. And even after they're dead, hey guys, the dam project's over, and the people that were against it are dead. But the kids that are orphaned, maybe we should be kind to them." I mean, heck, it's almost like the story of Naruto. Oh, what's this? The son of the former Hokage now holds the Super Fox Saiyan that his mother had, and we're concerned about the giant monster that's sealed within him. But if he ever becomes emotionally unstable, the giant super chakra monster will erupt. So let's ostracize him and everyone treat him like shit, and we'll just sort of, "Hey, third Hokage, you're supposed to take care of Naruto, right? So let's let him live alone in a fucking shack living off of ramen." I mean, I'm certainly that's what Minato would have wanted. She didn't just think it. She gave what she must have known would be interpreted as an order. She's the one to blame for initiating the attack on the Hojo family. You said before that the fruited priest wasn't mature because he didn't cooperate, right? Is this the same scenario? The Hojo family wasn't mature because they didn't act in accordance with the other villagers. That's why the hag decided to punish them, isn't it? Mion couldn't say anything in return, meaning that my accusation was the truth. They already punished the Hojo couple. Feel free to bring them to the torture room in the garden and chop their fingers off or something. But leave Satoshi-kun alone. Satoshi-kun has nothing to do with this. What did he do to deserve this? What did he do wrong? Answer me. Answer me, Mion. Mion! Very well. Please take care of the matter. Goodbye. Mion suddenly changed her tone and hung up. She must have done that to escape from my questions. I was furious. More than likely, somebody else was listening on the phone and sitting next to her, against her own will. That response wasn't to us. It was... I started redialing them, but then I remember what we decided. She'd hung up at the phone after using that phrase when she saw the hag coming. Oh, right, it's to explain why she's on the phone and who she's talking to. I'm glad you remembered your fucking safe word. Wow. I doubted she actually saw the hag, but it was the rules, so I couldn't call back for a while. Are you sure? This doesn't seem very, considerate of you, Shion. I went to the bathroom to wash my face and cool down. I turned the faucet, the water felt lukewarm. It didn't help me cool down at all. I'm disgusted by my own childish. I just wanted to fill my void. I didn't care about him, considering that Satoshi-kun was very generous, but I don't know if I can forgive Satoko. That's a different story. Notebook page 26. Forgive her for what? Being sad that you were beating her to death? And yelling at her? Or for, going through terrible abuse at home and relying on the one person she feels really loves her? I was looking up at the ceiling with my arms and legs spread out. Save. Also, I wonder if we hadn't had this additional situation with Shion, I wonder if Satoshi would have still beaten his aunt to fucking death. Heck, I wonder if Shion had actually performed a miracle and managed to make Satoko feel more at ease and in turn Satoshi's burden being eased, if maybe Satoshi would have at least opened up to them more, and maybe he wouldn't have immediately told Shion that day, but the next day or the day after, at least before the Tanagashi, he would have at least told Mion what he was thinking, or Rena, about what he was thinking about doing. He would have opened up. He would have cried himself a bit. And as much as you criticize Satoko for saying her crying wouldn't fix anything, let's be clear. If Satoshi actually felt safe and secure enough to actually be vulnerable with you, air quotes, Mion, and actually cry and open up about his feelings and his worries and his thoughts and his feelings, then none of the bad things would have ever happened. Heck, the whole situation with you even having to go get the nails ripped out of your hand were only because you had to out yourself as Shion publicly in order to provide an alibi to cover for Satoshi so he wouldn't be accused of murder. But at the end of the day is this. If you had actually been emotionally supportive to Satoko in that situation, it would have allowed you to be more emotionally supportive of Satoshi. And what would happen is the next day, or possibly even the day after that, at the latest, he would have opened up to Mion and Rena. He would have cried to them. He would have leaned on their shoulders, and he would have hugged them. He would have had a large group hug out, probably in the vegetable garden. Satoshi would have opened up and talked about his feelings. He would have cried his eyes out, and he would be hugging Rena and Mion. And they would be holding him and telling him that everything's okay. Which means in that situation, him crying about it actually would have prevented all of the horrible things from occurring that are going to occur later in this story. Which means in the end, Satoshi crying about it would have actually solved and fixed everything. And now, because Satoshi didn't feel safe enough to be vulnerable to cry about it, everything bad that happens from this point onward is solely because of that. Well, until next time, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you watching the video. And I hope all of you have all the hugs and head pats you could ever want or need. That you feel safe and comfortable enough to be vulnerable and cry about your feelings. And that all of you know that you're not alone, no matter how much it seems that way. And that things will eventually get better. Until then, take care of yourselves and make sure to get plenty of sleep. And above all, don't be too hard on yourself. Let yourself cry your feelings out if you need to. Give yourself a hug if you have to. And love yourself. Bye.